right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. A good afternoon also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Short, of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And every Saturday, we try to make an appointment to talk about the news stories that have made the rounds in the industry. And so that's some guests joining me to discuss those said topics. So without further ado, I want to bring on my guests. So we do have two guests that are joining us today. So I will introduce them one at a time. So let me bring them on now. See if we can get this going. So first up, I want to introduce one of the co-hosts, guest hosts that I'll have on right now. They are formerly the showrunner of not only All Star Comic Con but also Hater Nation podcast. It is my pleasure to welcome Michael McNutt. Let me bring him on. See
What's
if
up,
he.
everybody? Oh, three,
All right,
two,
one
one.
second. There we go. Okay, what's
All
up,
right,
Mike?
here
How
we
you doing,
go.
man?
What's up, everybody? Happy
Yeah.
Saturday.
So sorry for the delay. A little bit of difficulties, but we are here now. It is the nature of the beast, so to speak. But Michael, how are you, man?
Man, I'm doing good. It's Saturday. Chilling.
Indeed. So we, as I said, we will have another guest joining us, and once they are able to, hop on board, we'll have them. I'll intro them and welcome them on as well. But we have a jam-packed show. There are a lot of things to, touch on in the world of not only entertainment and sports and in tech as well, which you probably saw, in the background there and probably in our promo as well. What's going on there? But let's hit the ground running. Foremost story that I want to get into falls within the world of sports, and that centers around the GM of the Wizards. So let me bring that on. So we know as a GM of the Wizards, was let go. Now, Tommy, he has, been a staple with the Wizards for, quite a few years actually. He spent, over 20 seasons with the organization in a multitude of roles as vice president of basketball operations from 2003 to 2013, as well as senior vice president 2019. However, you know, since the departure Phil, he is GM, he stepped in as interim a GM in 2019 and has been the GM since. But as you guys know, they have not been playing to expectations and have not made the playoffs, have not gotten into the postseason for the past two seasons. So of the GM of the Wizards being let go, and what are your thoughts?
Well, it's kind of funny. For the longest time, I thought Tommy Shepard was a black guy just by the name. Uh,
Right.
I'm like, I was reading up because I'm not really a Wizards fan. I'm more of 76ers fan. When I was growing up, I was a Bullets
Sure.
fan back in the day, and now I just love the sport itself. But I was like, wow, Tommy Shepard, a white guy, that blew my mind. But I mean, he learned from one of the worst in Ernie Grunfeld, so you really can't expect too much. Even though back then Tommy was considered to be, a up and coming, promising, creative type person, but he was just handed a really poor deck with the roster of the Wizards. He traded away John Wall for Russell Westbrook. At a point where Russell was kind of not really ring chasing, he was cash chasing, he was legacy chasing, he was still just kind of he was a couple of years past his MVP stature. But it was something that had to be done. The biggest problem I saw was definitely giving Bradley Beal the max contract. You gave money, you gave him money to a guy who's not really him. You know what I mean? Like, he's a talent, And I don't think really the Wizards fan base has really embraced him. And I think it shows with his kind of lack of je ne sais quoi, I guess you can say, that
Okay.
it's really not there with him. He doesn't really connect with the community as much as someone like John Wall did, and I'm sure that's eating up at him. He was hurt this season, so that definitely put definitely a crutch on things. Got rid of Russ, got Kuzma, has played well, but it's kind of an Andre Bloch thing. You're playing well on a bad team. So does that really mean you're good? Or or are you just the best player on a bad team? So Kyle might go free agent. So then boom, it's all lost. He just used this as a tryout. I think Porzingis, relatively speaking, was a pretty good acquisition. I think he's the kind of guy who would stick around, but him and Brad aren't the kind of guys you build a team around. I think Tommy Shepard, to say that they made the playoffs once in 4 years is still kind of a misnomer. I mean, they were in the play-in. So he has not, and the Wizards have not fielded a competitive team for decades. We talk a lot about the Washington football franchise, but, this town used to be a basketball town eons ago, but it wasn't a Washington Bullets Wizards town. It was a Georgetown town. It was a Maryland town. Hell, George Mason has gotten behind. George Mason has gotten shot. My alma mater. Look at the Final Four in the back. My alma mater's gotten more shine than the Wizards. So
I see.
He had a rough job. He tried his best to make some moves, but I think in the long run, the max contract to Bradley is going to handcuff this team even more so than the other things that they've done to handcuff this team in the past.
No, agreed. And I mean, it's unfortunate because, as I said, it's not like he just stepped into the team. He's not like a newcomer. He's
been there for a while.
He's been there for a while. He's paid had his efforts for years upon years with this team and dedicated with this organization. So you hate to see that happen where you have someone who's been around that long and is dedicated so many years of what they've done in the industry with with an organization only to to slips. So it is a bummer. The words you were saying of trying to make moves, trying to change the dynamic, having Porzingis, but I mean Porzingis hasn't really been in the time that he has been in the league. While he's shown flashes of of greatness, of when it comes to durability.
Yeah.
So you can't really rely on them in that way. And even then, in my opinion, and you may disagree with me, he's not even a player. He's not a generational.
Oh no,
is going to have to take you all the way.
Yes.
He's going to be a very good player, a very good starter for a team, but not a franchise player that will change the entire destiny of it.
No. And that's been the Wizards' biggest problem. Unfortunately, they've never been bad enough to get a good draft pick. They've never been good enough
which
to
makes it so frustrating.
Yeah, so they're kind of in that weird, and they've always been in that weird like spot. They're right on the edge of sucking. So they don't suck enough to really make people mad, but they suck just enough to never get any good. See, that's the problem.
Exactly.
So they're always stuck in that, right outside the lottery. So great, we don't have to spend money to pay for a new player, but we don't get a quality player. So, and then it's not an attractive destination for people. Like everyone else is moving around ring chasing and no one's coming to Washington.
I was, and that's the part I don't understand, because how can you not have DC as a destination? This is the nation's capital. There's so much history in DC. Like, I think that's more of a testament of the team not doing a great job of selling to their player or selling to players that they're trying to attract to the team.
Yeah, and that starts from the top. And that starts from the top. That starts with Leonsis. lack of ambition. I mean, he's totally focused on other items. His like basketball is the least of his concerns, and you can see it by the play on the court and by the personnel that they pick up.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Do you have any like final thoughts before we hop into our next story?
Just get ready for another 35 win season. That's what they do.
Let's hope not. Let's hope that this is one step, even if it is a small step, one step in the direction of them. So, I mean, we have it happening right now, and I know we don't really have it as a story, but we have it with our, our football team of trying to change the culture. So, hopefully, we can do the same by, changing, what the makeup of the front office, and hopefully that will change the trajectory of the team. Not just with the culture there, but how we draft. Because I feel like that's another thing that's just is matter who will be
Yeah,
for our
it's
team.
it's it's like everyone tries to go the Euro route. We go the Euro route and we get average. Everyone tries to go the young route, like straight out of high school route. It didn't work out for us. Like I think one of your next stories talking about Mike Brown winning Coach of the Year
The ones that we
and
picked.
looking at what he did in Sacramento is kind of telling. Like nothing against Wes Unseld Jr., nothing against a lot of the things that the Wizards are doing, but you know what? I was hearing early in the season, look out for Sacramento, look out for Sacramento. And I was like, what is this? Was it the late 90s? Is C Webb back on the team? Like, why am I paying
Yeah,
attention to Sacramento? And
Mike
you know
Bibby.
what?
Yeah,
Golden State's paying attention to Sacramento right now.
right now. Yeah, they're getting a taste of it right now. And that's my team, but they are getting a taste of it right now. So, all right. So switching gears to our next story, and this is more along the end of entertainment business, if you will. Let me bring it up now. So over the course of this week, there was that Paramount Global is lending 15 million over to LL Cool J's Rock the Bells, and included in is first look at some of the projects that that organization is able to develop. So you hear this that to hear that there is money being provided to a number of projects, especially those with artists such as L. Cool J. So what are your thoughts on the story and them providing this revenue to LL Cool J's Rock the Bills?
I find it's kind of interesting because as an old head, I'm 50 this year. I always remembered how much the rap community used to look down upon folks really kind of embracing the media pop culture idea of hip hop. Like hip hop was in rap was such an underground thing, and for LL to kind of make this like this giant brand of Rock the Bells and getting all this money from Hollywood, makes me feel bad for MC Hammer back in the day, who was probably trying to do
Right.
the same thing. And everybody was like,
Right.
you a sellout, Hammer. And I'm like, I know Hammer sitting
No,
somewhere in his duplex, like, damn, come
this
on,
is what
dog.
I was
I was
trying
trying
to
to do
do.
this
This is
and y'all hating on me. But like LL always seemed the kind of guy, like if I was in a coma after his rap career and he got into acting and I woke up today and someone told me all the stuff that he's done since then with the acting and having this giant organization, this brand, and having Paramount flow into it, I'd be like, I can see that. LL was always the kind of guy that always kind of saw ahead. He saw ahead, and he embraced a lot of the entertainment aspects of it, and he's made one of the more fluid kind of transitions from just straight rapper to now this kind of mega icon businessman type dude that you really got to give him credit that it's really been, like I said, such a seamless transition for him. So I wish them all the best. I'd love to see more rap, especially rap that's kind of endorsed by LL, because that's kind of my, generation. To make it more out there, to be branded, and yeah, I'll wear some Rock the Bells t-shirts. I'll watch an LL Cool J biopic. Like give me more media that represents the culture and represents hip hop. I'm all for it. Because all the new hip hop got to go. I need LL to bring the real back.
So I guess from my perspective, the only thing that just in general, just on paper, is always, terrific to, have uh any artists, whether they are a musician, whether they are an actor, and then, in this case, it falls in both arenas of someone really, taking ownership of their brand. And a lot of times you often see that someone is kind of placing all their eggs in one basket, so to speak, of where a music artist or an actor, there for a while there was a tendency just to focus on those primary things and not branching further and taking, fuller ownership of yourself as a brand. And to have an organization like this that, just as you were saying, encompasses that of hip hop and projects that can, potentially be developed out of it, and to be able to have that backing, those resources of Paramount to be able to, execute that is, terrific. And especially with the show here, when it deals with, a person of color, and, having all of those streams of revenue, and taking a different role as, a producer, as a lot of those roles that for years ago, wasn't something that was commonplace. And now, now I feel like in the generation that we're in now, you're seeing that more and more, where that ownership is being, to, carry your voice forward as an artist is always great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
That is the case.
yeah, it's the ability of him to continue evolving and artist evolving. Like we weren't expecting LL, who's probably what he's probably over 50, he's between 50 and 60 years old, to be doing like Mama Says Knock You Out at 55 years old. Like we didn't expect him. He don't got the lung capacity to do that anymore. But what he can do is diversify and take his entertainment and his brand and continue to grow, bring other people up, and really show folks how it's done when you are this fantastic artist when you were younger. Well, what are you going to do with it? It's like, oh, well, I'm going to work on my craft and be an actor. I'm going to work on my craft and be a businessman, and keep that brand alive and keep LL Cool J on everyone's minds, whether it's just NCIS or all the other movies and everything else he's doing. So, the lip sync show, it makes him, it's one of those funny things where it's like Emmett Smith and Jerry Rice doing Dancing with the Stars, and there's people at the airports who don't know that they're football legends, that they just know them as, oh, you were on Dancing with the Stars. Like LL's at the point now where they're like, oh, you mean the guy from the lip sync battle show, the host? Oh, NCIS guy?
NCIS.
It's like, no, he's like one of the greatest rappers of all time too. Oh, so it's like that ability to stay relevant without, I can't find the word, but without compromising yourself, like staying relevant without compromising yourself. And I think that's where a lot of rappers around that same time period of LL, maybe a little younger too, ended up having that situation where they compromised their principles.
A crossroads, yeah.
Exactly. Sure. And they kind of took the wrong turn, and it didn't come out as well for them as it's doing for LL. So all the best to him. Give me some money. I need $1 million. I'll pay you back.
For sure. So delving back into the world of sports, we had a major story happen in the world of football, and this is centered around Nicole Lynn. So let me bring that up in. So Nicole, over the course of this week, was able to negotiate the largest contract in NFL history with her client Jalen Hurts. It was a 5-year, 255 million contract with 179.3 million guaranteed. Insane. Which again, she's been killing it in the industry, which is awesome to see, as a woman of color, but also she was the first Black woman to be able to represent a quarterback in the Super Bowl, which is she's been making all of these milestones, historic milestones, but to be able to negotiate a contract like this, Michael, please share your impressions, your thoughts.
No, I mean it's a fantastic story, and growing up in this area and growing up being a sports fan, you were always familiar with Lee Steinberg and David Falk, and all these white male agents of the superstars and agents of the fantastic, legendary athletes. It's nice to see young people. It's nice to see young Black people. It's nice to see
Yes.
young Black female people, doing this and showing, breaking the glass ceiling and showing that this is an arena that was for such a long time predominantly men, predominantly white men, and she kind of changed the game. She changed it in a very unique way by just simply messaging Jalen and saying, "Hey, I want to be your agent." And that's shooting your shot, and I think that's what a lot of younger people, the younger generation, does a lot more of. What the hell? Why not me? Like they kind of have that bravado and that kind of that confidence that gives them that, like, hey, I'm gonna send him. I'm gonna send him a message. What the hell? I'm a big. I'm a Washington fan. I'm a Washington, whatever you want to call them, football team, Redskins, Commanders. I don't care. I'm not so much a Commander fan, but I'm more of a fan of the sport. And in my age, I'm not such a fanatic as much as I respect the game. And it hurts me. It would hurt me to give flowers to an Eagle, but the young man has done a fantastic job. He came into the league with not much fanfare, and of course, the Eagles fans, which I will say are the worst humans on the planet, they did not take kindly to him early on, and he won them over. Well, not only with his play, but he's such a nice guy. It really hurts me. Take the pun. It really hurts me to give him his flowers, him being an Eagle. But I'm really impressed with him, not only his play, but he seems to be such a nice guy. And in this day and age of athletes letting the public down, and you know what, letting them down, whatever, they're human beings, but putting them on a pedestal, and unfortunately things happen. You're always waiting for that turn where hey, you find out that he licks feet in bus stops at night, but he doesn't do that. He seems to be a nice guy. So all the best for him. Get your money, and Lamar Jackson, maybe you need to holler at Nicole real quick, help you out a little bit.
Right. Right.
It
Exactly.
ain't working so good by yourself, bro.
You.
Maybe you should give Nicole a holler.
For real. So, I don't think there's really much else to be said here. As I said, on our show, we love to talk about, instances of, not just people of color, but any minority, when there are milestones and history being made that you don't see. And just as you said, for such a long time, among that industry of you have of sports agents, it's very male dominated, just as you mentioned, it's very white male dominated. And to be able to enter into that arena and to make your mark, and not just make your mark, but do it in a pretty quick turnaround. Like I was reading the story of how the turnaround within that period of time that she has accomplished all these 5 years of her, all of these things that she was able to accomplish, of what I was mentioning, with making history, not just as a female Asian, but as the first Black female to be able to represent a quarterback in the Super Bowl. And there were other facets of it too, things that she's accomplished as well. So hats off. Eagles aren't my team either, I'll be transparent, but at just as you said, I'm willing to give flowers of, uh what's what was accomplished here, and what she was able to negotiate. So good luck to Hertz. He has seemingly, you never know in the world of sports. I don't want to jinx it, but seemingly, he has a bright
Mm-hmm.
what so far in his career. So I wish him luck. But yeah, no, as I said, outstanding story of what she was able to negotiate, and perhaps what else is in store, not just for Hertz, but also for her in the trajectory of her career. So, did you have any final thoughts before we move on to our next story?
Nah, fly Eagles fly. As much as I hate saying that, but fly Eagles fly.
Outstanding. So over this week, hopping over into the world of film and TV, there was news. And if you guys, aren't familiar with James Gunn, he, is now newly minted as DC's overseeing, the properties, the superhero properties that are happening over at DC. Former MCU, of course. Right now, he's about to with the up the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. But over the course of this week, he shared a picture on his Twitter of him working on, starting work on the upcoming Superman film that he had announced. That's going to be a part of, his rebooted universe with DC, known as Superman Legacy. Michael, what are your thoughts on, what he on
Oh, you paused real quick. I'm not sure if you're done talking or not. I'll just start talking. Um, I think it's. I like James Gunn. I like a lot of his plans. My concern is he seems very ambitious, perhaps too ambitious, perhaps to the point where the folks at the studios are going to kind of give him carte blanche because they did such a crappy job initially with the entire DC universe. Um, Excited to see what's going to come out of it. I like content. I like superhero content, and unless it's really bad. Intrigued by the Blue Beetle. Saw the trailer for that not too long ago. It's very interesting. Excited about Batman. Excited about Superman. Interesting that he's really loading up kind of this first phase with, um, kind of secondary, tertiary level superheroes to kind of give people a different view, and not jumping straight into Superman, Batman, Justice League, Avengers esque type stuff. They're trying to start small. They know this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. They tried the sprint before and it failed miserably. So they're trying to go with the marathon, and, all the best to them with that. I mean, I think they need to focus on simply putting out good content and not trying to catch up to Marvel. Right now, might be interesting that, a lot of people are kind of down on Marvel, down on a lot of things that Marvel's doing in terms of their content, whether it's on, Disney Plus or the latest movies of the latest, Kang phase. That's a whole nother problem with Kang. But I think overall, uh, what James Gunn is trying to do, like I said, is ambitious and exciting. I just fear that he doesn't bite off more than he can chew. He's really a fan, and that's the best thing to be when you're and addressing this universe, is to be a fan and understanding what that means, as opposed to just simply being a studio suit and doing what's best for money or what's best for what they perceive will be successful, as opposed to, being true to kind of the comic lore, and making sure that things make sense, that there aren't those gaps that can just be, filled with, oh yeah, time travel, like you can't just yell time travel. But I wish them all the best. I think it was just unfortunate that they ran into a Marvel juggernaut during that the Infinity Gauntlet phase. But I wish them the best. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't throw everything at us all at once. Take your time. We ain't going nowhere. That asteroid / comet ain't coming no time soon. Take your time, dude.
Absolutely. And believe I might have froze a bit, but I'm back, guys.
You're back.
But yes. But hopping into, and I'm sure you probably touched on some of these bits, already. But just in general, James Gunn, has time and time again shown us that, he's a geek like, all of us when it comes to the, these superhero films. And um, there's one thing to say that your comics, and there's something else to also say that you're able to also effectively do that in the medium of film, because we've seen that too, where we have people that are quote unquote uber fans of a lot of the properties that whether they're doing it for TV or film, but they don't have the tools or the capabilities to effectively bring it, realize it on screen, whether it's on a small screen or on the big screen. And I don't feel like that's the case with James Gunn. Now, one thing that I have brought up, that while he is demonstrating in the past his capacity to be able to direct an outstanding superhero film, it still kind of makes me a little uneasy, and of just that idea of him directing a film but also overseeing DC Studios. And I know that he's holding part of that hat, he's not holding that entire hat. But if I were to give it a good analogy, and if we're talking sports, right, is thinking of it almost as like, if we're picturing almost like a player coach, like you're down, you're while you're overseeing everything that's happening with all of these properties, you're still down on the grounds and still doing working on the individual film. And so in that respect, I just hope that if he's carrying all of these multiple hats, that one or the other doesn't suffer because he's divided too much among doing a film while also overseeing DC Studios. So, I mean, I know that he's had an opportunity of seeing how that works with Kevin Feige, and what Kevin Feige has accomplished with the MCU. But at the same time, at some point, especially if you have that responsibility of overseeing the entire universe, some of the stuff has to be delegated. And I understand why he's directing it, because he wants very badly to make sure that he kind of jumpstarts this ship, so to speak, and gets it going in the direction that he is trying to have it go. But at the same time, I just hope that it doesn't take away from his ability to oversee, the other projects that he's trying done, and to have the necessary creatives to properly do them. So that would be my only concern. Other than that, on paper, I'm really excited to see what a James Gunn, superhero Superman film looks like. But just that delegation piece is what is the only thing that's kind of concerning for me. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, and definitely Kevin Feige came to my mind, but also on the other side of it is, he still has the level of leadership that, for example, Lucasfilms doesn't have. Like, so, like when the biggest problem with the movies, the latest Star Wars, kind of grouping of movies, is they didn't have a unified direction, because you had so many different directors going around there. I think what James could be doing is, not only is he setting the pace with the Superman movie, but he's also serving as that Kevin Feige. So he's kind of giving you the best of both worlds. I kind of look at it in a positive way, where, he knows the plan. He's in charge. So when he's out there directing the Superman movie, he knows exactly what direction he wants to go to. It's not going to be a JJ Ryan Johnson JJ thing like with Star Wars, where it's like, I'm going to go this way, where I'm going to go that way, where I'm coming back. Now I got to recorrect what you did and not even put a good movie together. So I give him the only one of the pure reasons I give him a lot of credit, and I think this is going to do well, is he made Guardians of the Galaxy a $1 billion, billions of dollars, multi-billion-dollar franchise. A so far tiered, outer rim type characters.
No
He
doubt.
brought them not only incredibly successful, but incorporated them into a universe that was mostly earthbound. You brought in, these guys that are all the way out in the galaxy, thus Guardians of the Galaxy. And you have them out there, but you made them beloved. You made them, interesting. You made it to the point now where this movie, the final one with this cast, is so, everyone's looking forward to it so greatly. It's like, wow, this guy really put this together. And the fact that when he was initially let go of the whole project, everyone was pretty much fighting for him to come back, shows that this guy really knows what he's talking about. He's really dedicated, and he's really in love with his content. So I give him all the credit. I think it's going to do well. I do feel that there could be one of those burnout situations, but hopefully this is like one of those. I'll do the Superman movie. Maybe 5 years down the line, I'll do something else. It's not going to be, well, every year I want to do this one and I want to do that one. So hopefully he understands what it means to be that delegator, to be that leader, to be like, this is the story. Let's stick to the story.
All right, cool. Now I want to give an opportunity to give my next guest. They've been patiently, waiting in the wings, and I know that they've, been trying to get everything up and running. So I want to bring of their accomplishments. They are a director, a writer, an editor from Brooklyn, New York, based in LA currently, and just like both of us here, a lover of TV, movies, news, comics, adaptations, and a lover of the craft and what it takes to create entertaining work to share with the masses. So it is my pleasure to welcome Greg him on. Give me 1 second, Greg. Oh, hold on. Let's see if we can get you on here. What's going on, man? Welcome. But I wanted to give you a chance this topic too, because I'm sure I saw you nodding off there of what was being said, and I'm sure you have a lot to say. So go for it. Love Slither. So underrated, but yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Golden age of these adaptations. And I think what is going to require now have these in order to have these films survive and thrive, you're going to need to evolve the genre space. You're going to need stories that sort of take us into the next era of what these comic book movie adaptations look like. And I think he can definitely do that. He's betting the house on himself. And that's what you have to do sometimes. You have to oftentimes bet on yourself in that you've done this. This will be I believe, his fourth time in the space, because if you count the three Guardians movies, on top of that, if you count the holiday special, so when you are relying on character, your characters will dictate what you have to do in your story. And there was a point where he said he didn't have a way in, an avenue into approaching Superman. And with time, and time does this thing where it allows us to understand characters more, ourselves more. So now he can speak to the Superman character, he can speak to that world, and he can speak to what it needs to be.
Absolutely. And Mike, did you have any remaining thoughts before we hop into our next story, which, as luck will have it, is also somewhat tied into DC Studios as well. So
no, let's go into that. I'm cool.
Awesome. So we were just about DC Studios, and we have some directing alums out of the MCU, none other than the Russo brothers. When they were, on a news junket for a Citadel, they had shared that, they would be open to directing the Batman film that would be in, James Gunn's DC universe. Now they were really quick to before people lost their minds of saying oh, you guys are doing it. No, they tried to quell it by saying if the possibility was they to doing because they love James Gunn and what he has done, as we've all mentioned just moments ago. So what are your thoughts of happening on jumping ship over to DC, even if it is
Was that for me?
for whoever like to go first?
You go first.
Whoever
You
like
go
to go
first.
first.
Go ahead.
Okay. I kind of see this as, to bring it home. A couple of years ago, my youngest won a Super Bowl in his flag football team. The year later, the team that they lost to picked up a whole bunch of the kids from my son's team, and they won the Super Bowl. Also, Kevin Durant. It's a Kevin Durant move. If you can't beat him, join him. First took James Gunn. Now you took the Russo brothers. Like I get like one time it's a what? Second time it's a coincidence. Third time you're just stealing people now.
Right.
You're just taking people. Now you just hey, if you got it, if you can get them, pay that check, pay them that money. I think the Russo brothers can be a fantastic the way that they made their movies, and you can definitely tell what a Russo brothers movie is in the Marvel universe. Is very gritty, grimy, very earthbound, very street level type stuff. And there's no hero in the DC universe more street level than Batman. So I think it's going to be fantastic. My issue with Batman is the same issue I was having.
We need another Batman.
Exactly, it's the same issue I had a couple.
Yes,
of years
we do. Yes, man. Don't let me come out here with this, man. Yes, we do. Go ahead, continue.
There's so many Batmen, so many men of Bat.
We have 3 right now, guys. It's going to be 3. We still have Keaton, who is going to be a part of, I guess you can kind of say, the Snyderverse-ish.
Then you got
James
Pattinson. He just got in. He just got in. But see, I knew when Affleck was, the previous universe's Batman, I was like, oh, they're going to have another Batman in less than 10 years. Because Ben's not going to do this for a while. He's going to do this 1, maybe 2 movies, and then he's going to be like, I want to direct. They'll probably say no. Then he's just going to leave. Yeah. Then they're like, oh, we got to start all over again. So now you got Pattinson, which is, Elseworld. That's a whole different thing that you're still going to be creating movies for. Then you're going to create this other one that's within the Gunn universe. It's like a lot of Batman. That's a whole lot of batarangs and a whole lot of things flying around being a Batman. So, Prince ain't around to do all the soundtracks for you. So, what we going to do?
So, I guess one thing that is, I was going to go ahead, Greg.
No, I was going to say I agree that we're talking about characters that have been done and redone over and over again. You have Superman, Spider-Man, and Batman. And when it comes to redoing these characters and sort of revitalizing these characters, the question I always have to think about, even when I'm approaching stories and character, is what can you show the world? What can you tell that hasn't been told before? And I think the greatest stories that have not been told before, that have never been told actually, is the greater Bat family. I don't think we necessarily need more Batman stories because let's face it, we've all seen how he became Batman. But I think what we need now are more stories on pivotal events like Cataclysm, like Aftershock, like Contagion, like No Man's Land. I think we need more stories exploring the Bat family, death in the family, death of the family, where we are examining the effect that Batman has had not only on Gotham, but on other characters who he has brought into this so-called family and how they have in turn had their own stories. So if we're talking about the Russos, and again, I love how the Russos really, they did a real good sidestep of just like, if we are asked, we're not saying we're doing anything, But I'm just saying, like, these are our top three. We like them. Batman's over here. We like James. James likes us. We've worked with him before. So obviously the good reputation there, the good repertoire is there. And on top of that, I think it would go a long way to have the Russos there because what DC needs now in terms of making movies is a record of saying, hey, look, if you're a director, if you're an auteur, come and play with us. You know, you're going to have a good time. You're going to enjoy yourself. And you're going to be able to tell the stories you want to tell and how you want to tell them. And having the Russos in their track record of having streamlined fight sequences, character moments, blocking, having all those beats there, I think would, if it were to come to pass, be a very positive thing for any new Batman and Bat family that they would create.
Absolutely. I was just saying, just overall, it's just fascinating, just like you were saying, Michael, of if you in general, what has happened, which I don't think any of us could have foreseen, but it's still fascinating nonetheless, of Warner Brothers basically pulling as many folks from the MCU, from that creative team, to be able to say, please help us with our please help us with our movies. And one thing that's been fascinating too, which I don't I've mentioned it, just kind of as a joke, but still Gunn may potentially be a Trojan horse to give us a DC versus Marvel film. Somehow,
they talked about it. He mentioned it. He was, it's too early to talk about that kind of stuff. But yeah, but next thing you know, they'll be trying to sign Jon Favreau and everyone else. Like they'll say, Robert Downey Jr., can you do something for us? Like Chris Evans, you ain't doing nothing right now, superhero wise. Why don't you come on by? They'll bring Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, and Robert Downey Jr. in some DC movie. They just wanted to
trust
work.
me. Trust me, they're gonna bring Johansson over because I know she still feels some type of way. I know she's still will down with
throw some
with Black Widow.
Repurpose some of that leather and make her Black Canary.
Wow.
It's already there.
Wow.
It's already there.
There's Black Canary. There is Batwoman. Kate Kane. I feel like to sort of redo that character for the big screen, there's opportunity for that. There are different versions of Batgirl, different versions of Black Canary you can do, different generations of Black Canary you could do. And a rising tide raises all boats. Kevin Feige has often said that he wants DC to do well because of if DC's doing well, then that allows the MCU to do better. And so you have that back and forth. And so now you have an industry and a medium and a genre of film that's feeding each other. It's not just, oh, look at Marvel doing well and DC not doing well. Now it's like, who's going to be better this week, Marvel or DC? And if you do have talent and creative teams, jumping back and forth, then I feel like they can only benefit from that talent, from that experience, and from that dedication to characters and story and adaptation to say, oh, well, here's how we did it over here. Here's how you could do it for DC.
Sure thing. Absolutely. So did you have any thought, any final thoughts or impressions before we hop into our next topic?
No, I'm good.
Bring
it on.
All right. So delving back into the world of sports, I know we were, talking a little basketball. Over the course of this week, of course, in the NBA playoffs right now, a lot of awesomeness happening, a lot of craziness too, actually. A lot of awesomeness storyline wise, our players and what's been going down. That news. There was the news that the Sacramento Kings' head coach Mike Brown was named as Coach of the Year for this season. Well deserved, just based off of how the Sacramento far expectations of I feel anyone team would do. I've always felt that great pieces, but they just didn't have the necessary, person to lead them, and it looks like person. So, what are your thoughts? And I want to get it from both of you guys, because I feel like it would be a good a good feel in either cases. I know you're deeper in it, Michael, than perhaps Greg is, but still, it's always good to hear perspectives in either case. So.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I wasn't the biggest fan of Mike Brown for the longest time. I think he was coaching with mirrors when he coached Cleveland. Like how can you mess up when you have prime LeBron? So he won that award. He won that Coach of the Year award back then. And I think that the spot time that he had with Golden State over the past 3 or 4 years, where he won a bunch of titles, I still was like, Mike Brown, he a Bama. I didn't really respect him, but seeing what he put together with Sacramento, that's a strong unit. That's a strong team. Like De'Aaron Fox, like I told you, first 2 months of the year, people are on Twitter saying, watch out for Sacramento. And I'm like, man, what the hell are you talking about? I ain't nobody looking out for Sacramento.
Exactly, right?
Led the league in scoring, exciting play. I love Sabonis. He's a fantastic player. Malik Monk coming out of nowhere, just playing hard. Harrison Barnes, who once again I don't like, but he's serviceable. He brings a little bit of that young veteran feel. He's not super old, but he's not super young. He's in that middle, so he can offer. And he's a former Golden State Warrior, so he can tell them about success. He can tell them about success.
Same as Mike Brown.
Yep.
So
he can bring in that level of experience and make them such a successful team. And the thing that's the beautiful thing about it is that they got that arena rocking. They got that arena rocking back from the old days with White Chocolate and C. Webb and Stojakovic and all those guys back then. That was Sacramento when it was hopping. And if you've ever been to Sacramento, that city ain't hopping, but they hopped in that arena. They hop in that arena. When you go outside, it's no longer hopping, but it's hopping in that. They hit the light. They got the light shining up in there. They got everything going. So you know what? I love Golden State, but man, when I watch, I let my boy plays basketball, so I always show him Golden State to be like, this is how you should play. This is how you should pass. This is how you should move. But then I'm like looking at Sacramento. I'm like, this is how you a dog. This is how you a dog on the court. This is how you attack the champs. This is what you do. You don't lay down. And you allow the refs to make game 3 a travesty, because they should have went up 3-0. But we'll see. We'll see at the end of this weekend what happens. It won't be a shock. If they go up 3-1, it won't be a shock.
Yeah, unfortunately. But before I share my thoughts, Greg,
the power of
perspective as well.
Again,
and you're closer than either of us. You're on the West Coast, so there you go.
Yeah, I'm on the West Coast. And it's like the power of a coach and the power of a good coach, can take you far. And just like any kind of conductor leading an orchestra, it's like you can only perform well if you have the players in front of you. And if you have the players in front of you, they can only do well if you have a proper coach leading you. And I think, we finally have an example of someone who, and it's I don't think unanimous is understated. I think to be unanimously voted as coach of the year in this kind of position, I think it's hard to come by. I think it shows a mark of good leadership, of taking the best components of all of your players and using that. And so I think it brings back morale, it brings back pride, it brings back some sort of a little bit of swagger when you enter the stadium, when you leave. I think Sacramento needs it, and I think they finally have it. So good for everybody there.
Yeah, and they're not a young team. They're not necessarily a young team. Fox is not a rookie. He ain't a second-year, third-year guy. He's been around for a bit, so he's seasoned. Yeah, he's a seasoned player. And I think one of the things I read about with Mike Brown is the first thing he talked about when he got there was accountability. And that accountability, that self-policing of yourself, makes the team stronger. And then you're seeing it. You're seeing what accountability, true accountability, if everyone shoulder to shoulder is going to self-police and take ownership of themselves and take ownership of what the team is going to do, you're seeing it right now. You're seeing it right now that they're going against the champs.
Exactly.
Yep. And they're not backing down. You know, they're not backing down from the defending champs.
Exactly.
Well, I will say this, Mike. I will say this. I know you were commenting on Mike Brown as a coach, and I understand where you're coming from. Where for a long time he had very much had this Wayne Brady-esque type of persona, where like I feel a lot of people slept on him.
Yes.
Because at first glance he seems kind of like he would be a doormat, but you listen to how players talk about how coach of how talented he is. And I mean, I know you brought up the example of LeBron James, and I do agree, to a point. He was we've seen time and time again where generational talent still takes a special person to be a or special coach, I should say, to be able to coach around that. You want to have a player who knows what they need to do, but you still need to coach within that and still be able to maximize the other players that are, um, generational talent.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen it become very catastrophic where it's not easy to do because, you're dealing with, those types of personalities from those said players that you still kind of have to, navigate through while you're also still coaching the other players on your team. So I feel like that is a very special skill to have when you have a player that's that iconic and that much of a generational talent and still be able to ensure that you don't get in the way of your player to be able to do what they're capable of doing, but also to be able to properly coach your other players that are surrounding it, because you can have so many in terms of the makeup of that team. You can have so many other things within the dynamics of that team: jealousy, playing time, like my sting, like all of these different variables that can come into play. Just like you were saying, whether they're a young player, whether they're a seasoned player, maybe a seasoned player is like, why is this rookie, getting more minutes than me? Like it's all these like variables where, we have egos that come into play, and be able to navigate through all of those egos on top of, the generation, that is not a feat to do. So that
And
would
one
be
of the
something that
things
I would mention about the Cavs when he was coaching them.
And one of the things with Mike Brown that I do give him respect for is, his ability to manage, like you said, those personalities and able to maximize their abilities and potential comes from one place. And to give Mike Brown credit, I will, but it also comes from the coaching tree, and he comes from the Greg Popovich coaching tree. So when you come from the Greg Popovich coaching tree, you're already a G to me. You're already locked in as one of the, more impressive and more respectable coaches in the league if you come from Pop, because he's one of those guys that I definitely look up to as a coach. I definitely, anything that Pop says, whether it's basketball or outside of basketball, I definitely listen to Greg Popovich, because the man knows his stuff inside and out.
Yeah, and then I was going to say, additionally, also, giving credit to Mike Brown is there was a stint coach with the Warriors, and Brown, was basically, holding down the fort, holding down the ship, and this was like in the postseason, and he was still, carrying that coach while Kerr was out. I think he was out with a back injury, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Like
he had that
having back surgery.
problem with his back.
So yeah, but he was like out of commission and wasn't even able to, actually, be there as the acting coach for the team. And that during that time when Brown was the assistant coach with the Warriors, he was holding down the fort and effectively holding it down. Like they didn't really eat even when he was, coaching them when Kerr was out. So but any final thoughts, guys, before we head into the next one? Back to this one. This one's dating me.
I'm good.
Good.
All right, cool. So this week we received there was news that went down talking about actor Charlie Sheen and him reuniting with Chuck Lorre for HBO series known as How Booker or Bookie, excuse me, Booker, but Bookie. But if anyone knows, Chuck Lorre, behind the Two and a Half Men, Big Bang Theory, a multitude of iconic shows, whether they have, been off the air or recently ended their run or still on the air, he is like, killing it when it comes to, having series make their runs on a small screen. And in terms of those, we talk entertainment, how we have those dynamic duos, right? Sometimes we have it with actor directors. Sometimes we have it with director composers. In this case, you have it with an actor and a creator. With Two and a Half Men, shows is still indication. I still even watching it. I know I could memorize. I have a lot of those episodes memorized, and I could still like quote them word for word. But I still enjoy watching them because it's testament to the not only Charlie Sheen but Cryer and the rest of the cast too of how well written that show was. We all, of course, know the schism that happened between Sheen and Lori, and well-known schism. So to have back and work together again, even though I will say there is a caveat to it, which I will bring into play that I feel is very key. I'll punt it over to you, what your thoughts are on this on this on this unexpected I guess eventuality.
Well, I have to say, schism is probably the most diplomatic word I have ever heard you use in regards to those two individuals. Schism is putting it lukewarm, mildly.
Yes,
Schism,
fair,
man,
fair.
when it was at its peak, it was. I mean, in Two and a Half Men, Chuck Lorre in the final episode had a stand-in from behind. I remember it. Had a
They
stand-in
even bothered
from
to bring him
behind in
back.
the last
Yeah.
shot. They did not bring Charlie back for this. He is ringing the doorbell. We see the back of his head, and all of a sudden, a piano just drops on him, Acme Looney Tunes style. Like that's how their relationship was at that point. So, you know, if you want to look up what was said on Charlie's End and how Chuck Lorre responded, you can Google that. But at its height, it was bad. It was really, really bad. And I think that,
It was
you
really
know,
bad.
like no one, that thankfully, no one got hurt per se, other than some bruised egos and some insults and a lot of things that, quite frankly, I think several people need to apologize, have apologies for from Charlie Sheen. And I feel like that has been done to a degree. Otherwise, this whole working arrangement would not have come to pass. I think
Yes. Yeah.
I think you can learn to work with someone because you recognize the talent that they possess, and I think that behind the scenes, the work has been done to regain that level of respect and that courtesy and that professional courtesy to say, look, I'm on the bury the hatchet if you are. Now let's just go get this money and do this work. Let's focus on the work and focus on what has to be done and keep the past where it is. And I think that Chuck Lorre is hedging his bets in that in reading the article, it said that that Charlie Sheen is a recurring cast member. Not starring, not leading, it's recurring, which means he's not in every episode, he's not fronting it. Chuck Lorre is not having to necessarily bet the farm on
Babysit.
this one person.
Exactly. Exactly. Glad you brought that up. But yes, Mike.
I was going to say this all comes down to four words. Let's make this money. That's really all it is. Let's make this money. And, I know Brandon from time to time might dabble in a little bit of professional wrestling information. So I know he could appreciate this, kind of story. Months ago, CM Punk got in a fight with the Young Bucks after an AEW pay-per-view. The Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. Big issue right now. CM Punk hasn't been on AEW TV for several months now. There are rumors that CM Punk is going to be coming back, perhaps headlining his own show for AEW Collision on weekends. The Elite and Kenny Omega will be on Dynamite. There's been talk that they still haven't talked to each other, while everyone else in the world is like, boy, make this money, bring it back, start the storyline up, get that feud. Y'all don't have to like each other. Y'all don't have to love each other. Hell, you don't even have to respect each other. But it's get in that ring, don't hurt each other, and make that money. And that's what Chuck Lorre and Charlie Sheen is doing. They understand, they realize the clock is ticking. They still need to pay mortgages. You know, like, hey, let's do this. We know what we can do. We know we're better together than we are apart. So let's just make this money, shake hands. And at the end of the day, I'll go my way, you go yours. Let me know when you want me back on the show, and I'll make more of that money for you. That's it. It's show business. What Jay Moore say and Jerry Maguire, it ain't show friends.
It's show business. That's right.
Business.
That's right. No,
Step
I
up.
mean, I think, you know, cool has prevailed some years past. Some, you know, it's, again, time can heal a lot of wounds, and so can money. So,
Yep.
you know, when we're talking about the possibility of having, you know, a new IP, new ideas are always, you know, risky and untrusted. You know, thankfully we're looking at, you know, Chuck Lorre, where, you know, he's a trusted name and a trusted track record and legacy of comedy, and it looks like, you know, he has enough of a cachet that if he's willing to bet on Charlie Sheen a recurring role, then that kind of adds to the confidence that whatever this new idea is. And also, too, let's not forget the rest of the cast. The rest of the cast have their own repertoire and their own history and their own legacy of being funny in various roles in film and TV. So when you round out the cast and when you round out, you know, the story that they're going to be telling, then you really do have the potential of what might be another great show. So I'm very curious to see what this ends up being, and what kind of comedy is going to ensue in, I guess, a post 2.5 Men space.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, just on, if anyone knows just the overall history, just as you said, of how tame the word schism is to be, it would be, you know, appropriate in describing, you know, the the saga between Lori and Sheen, during, you know, the the end of his, you know, run, Sheen's run on being a part of 2.5 Men. It's just so fascinating that not in a million years did I find did I that, you know, that, but you know, just as you guys said, you guys brought up some great of what why that case may be. But I would say that key point to really, you know, keep in mind is, I feel like that short leash, so to speak, is the fact that he is not one of the, you know, the main players of the series, and that he's a recurring player. So the show is not relying upon him. If, you know, and I, of course, I don't want this to happen, you know, other incident or anything else that potentially happens, the show can carry on without, you know, them missing a beat. It allows, you know, to still kind of provide that olive branch, so to speak, of saying, hey, just like you guys were saying, hey, you know, Sheen is really talented, but at the same time, you know, having on a short leash of, if, you know, if this doesn't work out, you know, this isn't going to be a case of like it was before, where we were relying upon you to carry us forward. We're going to be able to carry you on forward with or without you. So, but it's still fascinating nonetheless. But any final impressions and thoughts before we hop into an MCU story?
Good luck to everybody involved.
Yes, indeed.
Make that money.
So, this week, as I said, the next story we're going to hop in is MCU related. And, you know, for the longest time, there's been, you know, a lot of speculation of, you know, what's going to be going down with Fantastic Four. And of course, we've had, you know, previous iterations that best and have been something that other, you know, folks have enjoyed in terms of those iterations. And this week, there was news that went out from a school.
Oop.
Bueller.
I don't know if he's there.
Hmm.
I think he was talking about Adam Driver in final talks for Mr.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, yeah. I think it has to do with these rumors that one of the scoopers, I guess he goes by
But yeah, but
Daniel
no,
RPK.
yes, but we did get the news this week. Apologies about that, guys. Had a slight technical difficulty. But news that that none other than Adam Driver is in final talks to play Mr. Fantastic. Now, for those of you, I'm sure, unless you're living under a rock, many of you guys know who Adam Driver is, having played Kylo the Star Wars franchise. And recently, I didn't see it, but I know some folks there's been mixed feelings about the last film that he's done known as 65, which was a science fiction film. But just the prospect of that pedigree of Adam Driver potentially joining the MCU, as I said, final talks for Mr. Fantastic. What are your thoughts, gentlemen?
Based on what we know about Adam Driver, I've casually followed his work, and regardless of how his films have done and the various franchises, the one thing that is consistent is that he works. And we're in an era now where bad behavior is being brought to light and bad behavior is not being tolerated. And I think that who you are as a person is just as important as who you are as a creative professional. So Adam Driver, is a Marine. He served in the armed forces. He served the country, and there's a lot to be said for veterans who come into the different workspace, especially a creative workspace in Hollywood. They know how to work. They know how to get the job done. So I think that that level of skill, discipline, dedication, if in fact is Mr. Fantastic, would only benefit the story they have to tell, because the way he attacks a role, the way he attacks a character, is something that we haven't seen yet. I think it could be kind of like that new shot in the arm that a franchise in the MCU could benefit from.
Mhm.
Sure thing, Mike.
Yeah, I think after a couple of foul tips from the MCU lately, I think the news of Adam Driver possibly being Mr. Fantastic is excuse the pun, fantastic. I've always said when I was doing my podcast that Adam Driver, out of I guess the last six major Star Wars movies, all the connected trilogy pieces, that Adam Driver was the best actor that the franchise has had since Sir Alec Guinness. And I know that's pretty lofty talk, but I truly believe that. I think Adam Driver is a fantastic actor. And I think no one really, when you look at him and his other pieces of work that he does, no one can do the cursed genius better than Adam Driver. Like Thanos told Stark, "You're not the other one cursed with knowledge." And I think
Yeah.
someone of
Yes.
Mr. Fantastic's character, being the smartest man in the world, that's more of a curse than a blessing for most people. And I think he treated it like that in the multiple iterations of his character in the comics. At least we won't have to see the goofy Adam Driver dancing in a bachelor party like the previous the older Fantastic Four movie. But I think I just really like the guy. Yeah, at least we won't see Adam Driver doing that. You know, like I just really like the guy. I think him as Kylo Ren was fantastic, even though, you know, everything else was kind of falling apart around him thanks to JJ and Ryan. But I think, like I said, no one plays cursed genius better than Adam Driver. And I think he'll be a fantastic addition and offers a level of acting gravitas that the MCU hasn't had in a little bit. You know, like we've had Paul Rudd and it's fun and it's cute and he doesn't age. I get it. But, you know, having someone of Adam Driver's ability in the MCU is definitely a plus for them, especially with a new vehicle, you know, as the Fantastic Four, and hopefully the X-Men take us through the next Marvel phase, and it just becomes, you know, just a wild ride with kind of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four coming back home to Marvel and really entertaining us with some quality movies for a change.
For sure. I mean, just, and you guys have, you know, touched on all the things that I probably likely would have said. You know, how as an actor, and you know, the thing that's a bummer for me, and sure I trust in Marvel in you know, of the selections that they have, you know, for each of these roles. He's played, you know, you guys have already commented on Kylo Ren. He plays villains very well for a long time. You know, it was speculated, you know, could he be Mr. Fantastic? I thought that he could have been a terrific Victor. Do say so myself, but if that, even if that were is not meant to be, because I believe, you know, I think it was offered, and again, all speculation. This is, you know, from a scooper, a reliable scooper, you know, mind you, but of him potentially do something different, and something different than the wheelhouse of doing late. Get that, you know, artistically as an actor of wanting to do something different and not kind of get pigeonholed into certain types of roles, because that would be, I guess, in many ways would be very Kylo Renish of playing Victor Von Doom, even though I feel like he would be a terrific Victor Von Doom. Because, you know, if we're a character, you have to have an actor, and you guys have commented on already, you have to have an actor who can still act through a mask. And that's not easy to do. Like, you still need to be able to read what is potentially going on in his head and what they're communicating. Even if you can't physically see their lips moving and you can't see their expressions. So you know, I felt that, you know, Adam would be someone who was able to accomplish that, whether it's with body language, whether it's with, you know, the eyes, like what his eyes are saying, because those are going to be the main things that we would be focusing in on for the character of Victor Von Doom, because we don't have the luxury of really seeing all of his face and all of those expressions. And then additionally, too, you know, people don't really comment on this either. And I know you were talking about him being, you know, ex-military, Greg. I've met Adam Driver. He's not a short dude. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
He's a big dude. So, like, you know, I could definitely picture him being Victor Von Doom, because you want someone who has, you know, presence and is like not small, like they're big. So, while it's a bummer in one aspect that I'm like, I wish he was Victor Von Doom, you know, I'm open to seeing what he does with time and time again. You know, we've seen cases where a lot of actors are up for certain roles, and, you know, they end up playing, you know, the for the hero, and they end up becoming the villain, and it just seems like, you know, it was meant to be. That was what they were meant to play. Because you know, if I'm picturing other examples of actors that, you know, were up for certain roles, and, you know, when we look back on it now, we're like, really? Like, I can't imagine, you know, them being in that role. Like, if I'm picturing Sebastian Stan was up for Captain America, and in the casting director felt that he was too dark in his portrayal of Captain America. They were like, you know what, you should be Bucky though. So like that worked out perfectly. The same goes for Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston. Tom Hiddleston was up for Thor, and that would have been a completely different Thor had we had Tom Hiddleston as Thor. But we got a Loki. We got a terrific Loki out of it, even though he didn't, end up being Thor. We got a terrific Loki out of it. So sometimes, with what they've had in their history of going against type of what you anticipate or expect, it's worked out, in spades for them. So, I'm open, but I will say, it wasn't what I was anticipating for Mr. Fantastic. I don't know if you guys have any other final thoughts on it.
If I may posit this though,
Yes.
If we're talking about the evolution of moving the genre, the comic book adaptation genre forward, we're talking about no longer necessarily having a clear black and white in terms of good guys and bad guys. And then furthermore, we're talking about working in that very ambiguous gray of character and characters who have motivations that, even though what they believe is doing good, how they go about is very dark. How, their intentions, their actions are very, very dark. So imagine if in fact it turns out to be that Adam Driver is Mr. Fantastic. So imagine how much darker that character is going to be played. Now imagine how much darker you have to go to be a Dr. Doom in that kind of a space. That alone pushes forward the evolution of storytelling into a space that looks more like a Logan, where the actions of the antagonist and protagonist are just on a collision course.
No, I feel you, Mike.
I got a couple of points. I'm sure in the back of his mind he was thinking, I don't want to have to wear a mask again. Like he done that already. He's like, I don't want to really wear a mask. I want to show my face. I think number two, we all know MCU movies, no one wears a mask for that long. Hell, they kept taking masks off. They took masks off. Chadwick, they took the mask off. Robert Downey, Chris Evans, everyone walking around in their full superhero uniform and their face just showing. So MCU knows the face sells. So, that's another thing. So don't, even if he was Dr. Doom, he wouldn't have worn that mask for too long. He wouldn't have. You would have been disappointed, Tom, but I want to see the mask, and he ain't going to see no mask. But I also think and I was referencing the past Fantastic Four movie with Johan Griffeld and Miles Teller, those series. That gave us a different look of what Mr. Fantastic was. If you read the comics, and I really haven't, but I've read the ultimate version of the Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic ain't a cheery guy. He's kind of a dark, solemn dude. And like I said, Adam Driver's dark and solemn. That's his thing. That's what he do. He was made for this, so like, it's like I said, you're disappointed in the casting, but it's still not one of those like, oh my God, what are they doing with this? Like, no, like he's going to bring back the comic, he's going to make you forget about, the other two franchise Fantastic Fours, and he's going to give you what Mr. Fantastic really is according to the comic book. Like you're going to get, and he's along with the X-Men, but I think it's more going to be the Fantastic Four, because I think once Marvel got them, they are the first family of comics. They're the first family of Marvel. And I think they really want to carry them. I think they want to let the Avengers, rest, after this next Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars and everything. I think they're going to rest. And I think it's going to be Fantastic Four for a bit. And you want someone strong, imposing in presence. And maybe they want to change it up, because the MCU has been a lot of yuck, a lot of goofy around. And, you start bringing in a dark character like Dr. Doom, who's not going to just die after the first movie. You're bringing in it's a little more serious, especially if you continue the old political and racial connections with the X-Men. Now you're getting into a whole different story here. If you're bringing in Adam Driver to be kind of your you're leader of this new MCU universe, and you're bringing in the X-Men, and you're going to have this Xavier, Magneto, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X type thing all over again, done well. So now you're looking at a whole different, you're looking at kind of almost a Nolan verse of the MCU where ain't no jokes. There might be some, whoever plays the Human Torch might have a quip here and there, but it's not going to be who can say the funniest line out of all 8 of us or whatever like that. So it's kind of exciting to see where they're going to go with this, because I think the whole yuck, let's have a good time joking around stuff, I think it's getting a little tired with folks, and I think it's time to kind of reset, and it's a perfect time to reset with these 2 great franchises kind of taking in charge of the MCU and say, hey, let's tone it down a little bit and let's get real. Let's try to get real, because I'm sure after Secret War and after Kang Dynasty, the MCU universe is going to be messed up. There's going to be some stuff going on, I'm sure. So nothing better than to have these guys set it straight.
Well, I was going to say, to your point, I definitely feel like there's a palate cleanse that is happening as we speak, and I believe it feels like right now they're kind of testing the waters of doing that palate cleanse, because if we're picturing, the comics, it feels like right now where we're kind of getting into just for a short period of time before we really, dig deep into like Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars is Dark Reign. That's what it seems like right now, where storyline wise, where things are going, where we have a lot of villains who are in roles of power, and where they're starting to take shape in those roles of power, and things are going to be a little more twisted and perverse in what we anticipate with a lot of those characters and where they fall. Because if we're picturing some of the projects that are coming out now, I mean, we have Secret Invasion. And if we're picturing, what happened with Dark Reign, if I recalling my comics of Secret Invasion bleeding into Dark Reign, because we had, that whole thing with, what is it, with Osborn hopping in there with the Dark Avengers. I'm feeling like the Dark Avengers, we're not really going to have those. The Dark Avengers storyline is going to go to the Thunderbolts. What they're doing with the movie, I feel like the Thunderbolts are going to be taking over that storyline with the Dark Avengers, because we don't have an Avengers team. They're all disbanded. And it's going to take all of this craziness of all of these characters going buck wild for them to finally decide, okay, we need to put an official Avengers team back together, because like, all of this perverse stuff is happening. We have, Secret Invasion, where you have all these Skrulls that are infiltrating, roles in government. And, we have to wash that out. So, we're going to have all of these other parties, stepping in to kind of quote unquote, take on the narrative of cleaning up the government and preventing the Skrulls from entering. Because I don't know if you guys are following have been keeping track of some of the possible storylines that we have with some of the films, but from what I understand, we'll have Ross potentially being the president of the United States. So if he's going to be the president of the United States, and we already have Val in a position of power with the CIA, that makes me picture that both of them somehow are going to kind of take on that role of what's his name, of Osborn, since we don't really have Osborn in this universe yet officially. I know we had like the multiverse version where they're basically going to try to take over that narrative, even though we know that he is going to be the catalyst and the person who cleans it up. I feel like politically they're going to take credit for it, and it's going to give them that license for Ross to become president, to give them the license to put together the Thunderbolts and do all of this crazy buck wild stuff. And then from what I understand also from Daredevil, we're supposed to get the storyline with Kingpin becoming the mayor. So like we have all of these villains stepping into roles of power, and it's going to take a semblance of a new Avengers team to kind of clean house of all of this like perverse things that are happening throughout Marvel. So
yeah, we're talking about the potential of an arm. We're talking about the potential of an arms race, an upheaval of status quo what happens when the bad guys win, and we're
Exactly.
talking about science versus evolution, or I should say the science of evolution, because that's what the Fantastic Four have always been about, and that's what the X-Men have always been about. So it's going to propel into the sequel. We're going to be absolutely insane. I don't know what's going to be able to get away with there, and what comes out of that is going to be, if what we've been watching is the golden age of comic book adaptations, then I think we could be crossing over into like a very platinum age where the stories are far more nuanced, where you're still allowed to have as much fun as you want, but the consequences conversely will be equally as dire.
For sure. For sure. Mike?
I'm just more concerned about what in the world they're going to do with Kang. Like, are we going to get like Michael T. Williamson suddenly being, taking place of Jonathan Majors? Like, I don't know what's exactly going to
TBD,
happen.
to
Yeah,
be
I
determined.
don't know.
Yes, I mean that's for another day, but man, that is blowing my mind right now.
So who knows? I mean, I know that's still more reason I felt like there was a empty need for a Doctor Doom to cast, so that way you have another route to go with your Secret Wars. But I am not Kevin
I
Feige,
It's too
guarantee
so
you,
late. He's already
whoever
doing
Doom is going to
stuff.
be is going to surprise. Whoever Doom is going to be is going to surprise.
If they pull that off and they pull it off to the point where we can all be like, okay, we're good with that, it might be the greatest magic show I've ever seen in my life. If they're able to turn this
okay,
around and say, oh well, somehow kill Kang off and Doctor Doom shows up, I'm good. I'll be good. I'll be good. But I want to see him do it because you know what? The biggest story about like Star Wars and how Ahsoka's mere presence as a TV show on Disney Plus could have possibly rewrote the sequel trilogy because those who are deeper into this conspiracy, Ahsoka was supposed to have died, but she got saved
Mm.
by Ezra. Her time traveling through caused some kind of weirdness.
Oh,
Check it out.
right,
Check it
right,
out.
right, right,
Go check
right.
out. There's a guy, Thor Skywalker, on YouTube that about a year and a half, 2 years ago, the conspiracy came out, and it actually makes stupid sense that the fact that Ahsoka is living and has her own show means that there was a change in the time stream, and that was going to be every fan who hates the sequel trilogies. That would have been the reason they would have rebooted the sequel trilogies. Which, by the way,
Oh,
who knows?
okay,
The next
okay.
couple of Star Wars films might actually be that. They might say,
uh,
"Hey, let's forget about those three movies and let's just make Rey a Jedi Master." But that's another
Okay.
story for another day. I like a good conspiracy.
I love conspiracies though. I love conspiracy. I love being able to theorize though. Greg, you have any final thoughts before we
No, I'm good. I'm
continue?
good. I'm gonna stop now before I go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's all I do. Rabbit holes. That's all I do.
All right. So, moving on to our next story, and this is a story that is close to my heart, and that's none other than Mortal Kombat, of course. There was news drop that not only is pre-production starting soon, but we have a multitude of characters that will be making the cut in the sequel. So we will have Katana, Shao Kahn, Baraka, as well as Quan Chi joining into the fun of the reboot sequel. Right now, the title of the sequel hasn't been, officially provided yet, nor have the actors been cast in the roles. However, these are some of the roles that they are looking to fill for the upcoming sequel. Guys, what are your thoughts? I'm assuming you guys saw the reboot, and what were your impressions of that said film?
Greg, you can go.
Go for it.
I think that it definitely had potential. I mean, obviously, I'm most happy for it. 'Cause I tend to follow certain actors and their careers and stuff like that. I'm most happy for the actor Cat Brooks because
Yes.
Mhm.
he had done so much work to train for it. He had walked away from his role of playing Jimmy Olsen on Supergirl. Before that, it was he was on Desperate Housewives. And so to see where he's gone and to see the work he's put into that role and to kind of see his evolution and the fact that he's able to find time in between him being a cop on Law and Order now to go back to this Mortal Kombat role. I'm just very, very eager to see how they evolve his character because I think there's a lot of potential there. I think there's a lot of story they left on the table after the first one that if they see how the first film worked and just keep going with the gore, with the graphic fight scenes, with that brutality, and they're able to interweave some deeper story. And again, not get lost in the weeds, but just evolve what they already have. They could have a really great franchise in their hands because people forget that the franchises that we love now began with very, very meager seeds. And I feel like the first Mortal Kombat film that came out, again, in the height of the pandemic, planted a lot of seeds. And now is when they can really grow them and bring them into fruition.
I like it. I like it. I'm all for it. I loved Mortal Kombat back in the day, the '90s version. I still pump that club song every now and then. I scream Mortal Kombat randomly in the house. Scare people with it. But I'm excited that with the way technology is and the way that fight choreography has improved greatly. I'm really excited to see how they can, amp it up. I agree with you. I'd love to see the gore because that's what Mortal Kombat was about. And if you can wrap a decent enough story, we're not looking for an Oscar nominated film. We just want a good story incorporated with some fights. And I think it was funny. I just watched a video the other day kind of breaking down the Street Fighter movie from back in the day with Jean-Claude Van Damme. And they did kind of the same idea. They just did it poorly. Where they had the characters and they were like, well, let's weave a story around with it and not just make it I'm going to walk down this road and fight this guy, then the next road and fight this guy. So it's just a side scrolling tournament fight. But they try
Mm,
to put a story around it. And that's all you
mm,
really need to know. I didn't like the fact that the first Mortal Kombat movie, the one during the pandemic, kind of brought in a new character out of nowhere. I think the characters that you had
mm,
were totally fine. And you could have just had them and incorporated them. I didn't mind it at all. And then he's in it, and that's great. And they showed some kind of lineage. But I'm excited to see Mortal Kombat 2 bringing in a lot of those names that we're all familiar with, and interesting to see how you're going to weave them into the story.
And on a side note, it's funny you mentioned Street Fighter. In fact, for the second film, you know who I want to be in the film? I want them to call Ming Na Wen. Call her, because she has the squabbles, she has a fighting ability. Call her into the sequel.
You can put Ming Na Wen in anything, I'll watch it. Hell,
It's money.
So I was gonna say, just in general, guys, like uh with and the 90, what is it, 95 holds a special place in my heart. I'm gonna age myself a little bit, and then I don't want you to feel too bad, Mike. I was 9 first Combat came out. I remember
damn.
seeing it in theaters.
I see that. Alhamdulillah.
uh um I enjoyed, with what they were able to do. Even now, looking back on it, it's still an impressive feat of what they were able to do. Second film aside, the first film, what they were able to do with that film, and still to compass the feel of Mortal Kombat
Mhm.
while not making up gory, which was a bummer because I've been watching playing the game, and I think by that 3 had been out by the time they got to the first movie. So I've deeply entrenched in the games, but um, with that in mind, considering all of those things, they still were able the spirit of how brutal Mortal Kombat was. Even with that PG-13 rating that they had, they got away with some stuff in there, even despite their PG. I was like, wow, they got away with that. They were able to do that, which I have no problem with. But at the same time, no, go ahead. What you want to say?
No, I was like, I
Oh,
loved it when I left that theater. And by the way, I was 22 when that movie came out, youngin. So, I was 22 years old when I came out of that theater. And this was a time, where there wasn't a lot of quality video game based movies. There were none.
Yeah.
So when you walked out of there, you're like, wait a minute, like, all right, like that's what you could give me. I'm cool with it. Like I said, I wasn't looking for Shawshank Redemption. I'm like, this is, I got what you got. I got what you were trying to do here. Let me go down to the arcade, throw some quarters in. Let's do this. And it was fun. And like I said, like back then, 95, CGI was awful. Like I think they had Gordo.
Yeah, that reptile.
Yeah.
Even stop motion. It was all stop motion. Yeah.
Even fight choreography back then was really poor. Like now it's they had a couple of relatively unknown actors, and I think Pete Sampras's wife, she was in it, that didn't know how to fight. They weren't. It was kind of like friggin' Iron Fist. They just put an actor in there and be like, do some karate stuff. And you're like, I don't know how to do karate stuff. It's like, but now.
Oh no, I know you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes, she played Sonya.
Yeah. Who, by the way, I don't know if you know the trivia behind that. Who was supposed to be in that role? Cameron Diaz.
I know the story, but I forget who's supposed to be in it.
Wow.
Yeah, I cannot picture her doing that role, but in the kind of a what if that she almost did that role.
Who was that? I missed it.
Cameron Diaz.
Oh, Jesus God, no. I'm sorry. That just came out the gut. I'm sorry. You said that, and I had to react. I had to react appropriately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, heck, I just think it's time for something like that. I'm a big fan of Tony Jaa and stuff and different martial artists who really bring a level of authenticity to it. And I know you're going to hopefully talk about Fast X. Tony Jaa was in a couple of Fast ago, which he was underutilized. It was a joke. Paul Walker, rest in peace. But you ain't beating up Tony Jaa. All right, that's just the way it is. But I love a good martial art movie. I love a good video game movie. You put it all together. Every now and then you throw in that bad 90s soundtrack. You got me. I'll give you my $12, $14, $15.
That's right.
Seriously.
Let's get into this Fast X though, because I watched that trailer. Please, let's get into that eventually. Because
bro, I watched it like 5 times. Yeah. I was watching it when I logged on. I was like, no.
I'm like, wait a minute.
So you guys have already spoiled it, but watching Fast X that came this week, more insanity of things that physically possible in reality,
and yet more grounded. Somehow it's more grounded. I don't know how.
What I love about my Fast and Furious, guys, I'll just punt it off to you. Have at it, because I have thoughts, but I want to say.
Look, man, all I gotta say is, look, the worst thing I remember seeing was in 1995, and I remember when I was watching Batman Forever, and they had this idea of having the Batmobile drive up a wall, and I was like, man, that should look cooler. I mean, I know I should like it, but that should look cooler. Fast forward, almost 30 years later, and then we have Vin Diesel driving down a dam with a flaming inferno behind him. I'm like, see, I can believe that. I don't know how, but I can get behind that because you've sold it. You made me believe. So that trailer, my God, I've been waiting for Jason Momoa ever since he popped up on my TV screens in Baywatch, Hawaii. I've been waiting for him to come into his own and have some fun and really cut loose. I love his portrayal of Aquaman. Love how he kind of cut loose in that role. I love how he's cutting loose in this role in Fast X. I love how they're taking storylines from the past and tying them up. I love how he is allowed to be bad on the verge of almost being crazy. But I love how he walks that line. I love seeing Michelle Rodriguez and Charlize Theron just kick wholesale ass. The people they have added to this cast, from Brie Larson to Alan Richardson, I mean, just I can't even keep track of the number of people they've added, but I love it. I absolutely love it because I've loved watching them in different things. So it's like you're telling me I'm getting a buffet of all my favorite things in this movie. Just no one go to space. Just keep it grounded. Do whatever you want. Just nobody go to space, and we are good. I am in there with you.
There's I always watch fast trailers with a smile on my face because of the absolute ridiculousness of the whole damn thing. The level these guys drove Honda Civics and stole VCRs in the first movie.
Yes,
Now
sir. And
they
DVD
are
players and
trained
whatnot.
assassins. Now it all ended with me a couple of fasts ago when Vin stomped on a parking garage and the whole thing collapsed. He has superpowers. I don't understand how we got to this point. It boggles the mind, and is wild as this world is that they've gone everywhere. They've been all over the world where you can drive, and some places where you shouldn't drive, like a frozen lake. You shouldn't drive on that, but they've done it. They've raced everything. They've raced jets. They've raced helicopters. They raced a submarine. You shouldn't be able to do that, but they've done it, and it's just fun. Literally, if you don't, your face hurts while watching this movie, all these movies, because the level of ridiculousness blows my mind. The world is so big. However, every bad person they face is within that little experience that they've had. It's never anyone new. It's someone related to someone they have killed. That's the crazy thing about it.
Has you realize that every villain is a
like it's an offspring.
Well, I mean, that was the beauty of. I mean, again, all credit to Justin Lin, but that was a credit to what he built when he did Tokyo Drift. I mean, when he did Tokyo Drift, I feel like he didn't get the love that he should have got. He didn't get the flowers that he should have got for that film. So when it came to that fourth movie, he was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna show y'all," and he did that by creating this self-perpetuating arc that it paid dividends, film after film after film, because he put in a device that other writers have been able to kind of pick up and usher on to the next film and add to and bring back and recall. And now they're recalling an event from recalling an event from Fast Five, is it?
Yeah,
whichever one where they drag the giant safe.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that Justin Lin forecasted, here's what you could do, and the fact that the theme is obviously it's about family, and you can do anything with family, but the theme is also consequence. It's like, you can do whatever you want with family, but everything you do is going to come with consequence.
That's the most realistic thing about the whole damn series. Is there's consequences to your stupid actions. You can't simply fly cars from one building to another and kill people, or tow a something ton safe through downtown South America and not have consequences. Someone is going to survive and say, I need to kill those guys for killing my dad, for killing my sister, for killing my wife, for killing my mother. And then, like, everything, like we talked about Chuck Lorre and Charlie Sheen making up. There's more makeups between people who 2 movies ago were trying to kill each other in this movie. Han opens the door. Jason Statham's just right there. We cool now, right? Oh yeah, we cool. Let's go kill people and drive fast cars. Dude, you killed me 17 movies ago. You tried to kill me 17 minutes movies ago, and now we're trying
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I'm punching you real quick.
yeah.
But you can't because that's Jason Statham. Oh, wait. Han's an expert in mixed martial arts and martial arts too. I didn't know that. He just used to eat chips out the bag all the time and hang out with Gal Gadot. By the way, whatever movie's left, she's coming back too. Because you never die in this movie.
Let's
No
be
one
clear.
dies in this
There
movie.
was no body found. There was no body found. Let's be very clear. There was no body on that runway.
She just fell into the darkness of like there should be a body on that tarmac, whichever Fast movie that was. She fell. There's a body on that. No, there's not.
6.
She's gonna pop up somehow. End credit, Fast 10. She shows up. I'm already calling it.
Yep. Her and Eva Mendes
They
show
use
up.
what they used from Shaw in the Android, maybe.
Everyone
I
can
mean,
that
look.
group is.
Yeah, Brie Larson.
do
I'm
it.
guessing I've heard that she's Kurt Russell's daughter. Random as all hell. Random as hell.
Well, okay.
Everyone can drive whatever vehicle is made. They can drive it expertly without, oh man, this thing's handling kind of weird. No, get in it, go, let's go. Tyrese, God bless you. You're getting a check, but he's the goofiest damn character in the whole damn franchise.
Props to Ludacris for making a meal out of every single movie too. That man's made a meal out of every movie.
And the biggest fumble the bag in probably movie history goes to Ja Rule, who was offered that spot and didn't want to take it. Biggest fumble this century. Biggest fumble 2 centuries. Biggest fumble in the past 200 years was Ja Rule dropping that bag.
Oof. It's like a heartburn every time I think about Monica.
It's just I will watch that trailer so much. I'll watch all of those movies all over again. I gotta watch the beginning. I gotta watch the first one and just stare at it and be like, all right, so in 10 years,
look at how far you've come.
These guys are covert operators who've been
they are the CIA level of vehicular assassins.
Yeah, they are Mission Impossible. That's why Tom Cruise don't do all these movies that much. They have taken over Mission Impossible. Like, I feel it's crazy that Vin Diesel had a vehicle, had Triple X, which was supposed to be this crazy out of your mind dude who does crazy out of this world stuff with cars and skateboards. He was like, nah, I'm good. I'm good just doing all that with the Fast series. We'll just do all that crazy Triple X stuff that I was supposed to do. We'll just do that here and bring it over here. And by the way, John Cena's my brother. But like, what? John Cena's my brother, and we don't have The Rock no more because we don't get along.
Which is unfortunate.
Well, yeah.
Considering what they had with that franchise, I mean, then this is me talking about Hobbs and Shaw. Because if things had worked out differently, they could have somehow fit the villain into the Fast and Furious franchise
easily.
Could have tried to like meld that organization with Cypher and said that they were all working together and make it all come full circle. But in my head, that's a whole other storyline. So
they still got another movie or two left in them, right? I mean, they said the end is coming, so that means there's more. So don't give them any ideas. Don't give them any ideas because they're gonna do something dumb. Hell, The Rock.
I'm gonna give them an idea. I'm gonna say Hugh Jackman is the big bad in the last movie.
Do it, and you know what? Make him Wolverine. Gus, forget it. Make him Wolverine. Wolverine is the bad guy in the Fast series. Just do it. It's believable at this point.
Just do it. Well, no, I think and this is a different discussion entirely, but I think there's a lot to be said for the Marvel effect and the Marvelization of a lot of movies because
yeah, for sure.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, but what I was going to say is because of Marvel and because of what's happened, what.
Oh, we dropped off.
You dropped off just for a bit.
Oh, sorry about that. I got this reception is cutting out, but basically
All
you
good.
have Marvel essentially doing a fantastic job of influencing cinema, just like John Wick was influenced by Bourne and was also influenced by Marvel. You have the Fast franchise also influenced by Marvel, going bigger, more shared universe, more bigger sequences and bigger stakes.
But we're eating it
I
up
want to
though.
give them one
We are
credit.
eating it up though.
Yeah,
I'll give
Because
them
here we are.
credit.
We're at
Yeah.
10. We are at 10. I never we'd
Yeah,
be at a
I'll give him credit. I give him
fast.
the greatest credit and the greatest flowers ever. Paul Walker passed away at Fast 7 in real life, folks. They have kept him alive for 3 more movies. Off camera, they have kept him alive for 3 movies. And no one bats an eye. Everyone accepts it. I give them credit for making that universe acceptable where Paul Walker, who was an integral part of the first 6 movies, is off camera and referenced constantly and brought to your attention with the kid and with his wife, but he's off camera and they have not figured out a way or have even accepted the idea that we might have to kill him off. They're just going to go and finish this franchise as if he's just sitting home being a house husband, and we all accept it. That's the universe we're in. It's a ludicrous, accept the pun, universe that the Fast franchise gives us. It's an absolute wackiest universe on the planet, and I'm here for it all.
I do see ILM and Weta and the same team they used for Furious 7. I do see them coming back for the very final film to have him quite literally be the Deus Machina to save all of them in such a way
In the last
where,
minute, yeah, some last
yeah, in the last 10 minutes of the
leaves
movie,
maybe.
all we have to see is his souped up vehicle saving the day, and all you need is a couple of shots of him in the car, a couple of shots of him hugging Vin Diesel and everyone else, a couple of shots of him hugging Jordana Brewster, and a couple of shots of him looking across at Vin Diesel with that smile, that nod, that corona, that toast, and that's it.
You're gonna have some gearhead thug tears in that theater when you do that,
Yep,
dog.
yep. And that's
Wiz
money.
Khalifa, you're on in 5.
Yep, that's right. You are on at 5.
All right, guys. So here we are at the tail end of our last story, and you guys have seen it. Those of you that are watching, so that I hitter story centered around GPT, Chat GPT, as well as Truth GPT. If you guys aren't familiar with Chat GPT, it's a platform that a lot of people use, and especially content creation. I've used it, on occasion. I don't know if either of you have, but it gives you the ability times kind of uh, tune you do with content creation, whether it's with and other facets of creator of putting together scripts and things like than that. However, in an interview with Elon Musk, he went into some detail of how Chat GPT is not always as one might in some cases is can in some cases used to be somewhat politically correct and not be very I guess in that it provides, and so that's why with another platform known as Truth GP. So guys, I don't know if you guys had a chance that interview, but some things that he talks about of what we have with AI implemented into our day-to-day lives is very concerning. I always make the joke somewhat of sky this way, but hey, and it sounds like it might be in some instances might be on us. What are your thoughts on coming up with a platform, and where do you guys stand with Chat GPT for either of you?
All right. As far as he goes with this Truth GPT or what have you, listen, the man needs to back off of it. He needs to sit his ass down because he is too overextended. The man is he owes money to people who helped him buy Twitter. The man is playing around and he will get himself hurt if he doesn't just sit down and chill. Right now, all he's doing is essentially being a shit stirrer. He's just like stirring the pot because we're having the conversation. And yes, he is not the only person who has talked about the dangers of AI and ChatGPT and what have you. Um, I think as a tool, it can be useful as far as automation. Um, I don't think this whole notion of the ridiculousness of the PC nature of an AI system is all based on how we program the automation to work for us, not for us to work for it. And I think we have to remember that these things these things are what's being debated on right now when it comes to the contract negotiations with the WGA. It's part of the conversation about producers wanting to use it for developing their storylines and how much writers should be getting paid. And so whereas some people might want to pull political straws about it, there are people's lives that are kind of in the balance. And I think Elon Musk being involved sort of trivializes it. I think there needs to be more responsible people in the conversation talking about this that do not have anything to do with Elon Musk, honestly.
Indeed.
Um, Oddly enough, I've done a lot of work with AI and it's how it's being leveraged in healthcare. And a lot of the folks that I've been speaking with, the biggest issue is not really about truth and wokeness and political correctness. AI is, like you said, AI is only as good as the data that you put into it. And the data that you put into it is only as good as the person who is controlling that data to put into it. So therein lies the thing. So if Elon's sitting there saying, "Oh, ChatGPT is too woke," well, that's because whatever content and data is going in there might not be exactly what you want, Elon. So let me do Truth GPT and I'll put in content that I want. You still have bias no matter what. And the fact that you're stating something is incorrect and I'm going to fix it is already showing your bias. So you're not coming from a morally perfect and a morally positive standpoint here when you're saying I'm going to do Truth GPT. It's going to be anti woke. So that means you're going to omit information and data that will help Truth GPT offer a unbiased response. So the problem, and I always thought that he not too long ago was getting high with Joe Rogan and talking about how dangerous AI is, but now he's just going to make his own AI. He confuses me constantly.
Mhm.
Work on not having your missiles or your rockets blow up. How about you work on that real quick? How about like focus on that because we're supposed to, you're supposed to have manned missions soon. And I'm sure if I'm the astronauts there watching that big rocket go up and go boom, I'm like, I don't want to go no more. So, with his AI, like I said, the biggest issue with AI is the data that you put into it. So
Yeah.
you need to have operators that are unbiased, operators who are morally correct, and if your whole idea is we want to be anti-politically correct, you've already shown your bias. So it's already a failure, which, Elon's used to.
No, I hear you. I guess just in general, appreciate what the what the thought process is behind what you're trying to accomplish. But um, it's there have been cases where I've used PT, and there are times where like it isn't accurate in terms of information that I pull from it and to utilize with it. But it's still up to the user and a person who is working on that platform to ensure how effective it is. So I just feel like it's just going to be a constant. It's going to be a constant effort, one way or another, given. and to make sure that it's being, because I feel like it can be used and not used in the proper way. And so the the and what you are seeking to accomplish, saying platform that just creates, I hate to say, creates another of something that can be used improperly, or just as you said, Michael, of something else that's going to be biased, which brings us right back to square one of where we were. But Greg, do you have any additional, or either of you, additional notions or thoughts?
Nah.
Cool. I want to thank you, gentlemen. We've been on here for 2 hours. I don't know if you guys have realized that, but I appreciate you guys hanging around for 2 hours to talk about these stories. Before I let you guys, where they, I'll leave it up to you. Whoever would like to go first, tell folks where they can find you.
You go first,
Cool.
sir.
Oh, thank you. Instagram, the nut says, but in reality, I just post pictures of my son's high school. My son's basketball highlights on that. So actually, hit me up on Twitter. Hey, Elon, hit me up on Twitter at the Hater Nation. That's where I put the comedy. That's where I put the poignant stuff. That's where I show off and act like an idiot. So the Hater Nation on Twitter. Check it out.
All right, bet. Greg.
You can find me I am gregpayton.com. You can also find me at LA Nocturnal on Instagram.
That's a bet. So I am your host, Brandon, co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thank you guys so much for watching, hanging, talk about some of the stories that made the rounds on This Week in Review. Next time. Peace.